If you want to dominate in Warzone, you're going to need the right settings. So in this video, I'm going to set you up with the best controller settings and graphics settings to help you win more matches. This video is going to be putting a ton of focus on your controller, and we're going to be talking about this right here a lot. We're talking about the Expel Pro controller and just pro controllers in general. So I'm just going to give you a quick heads up. I use a pro controller, so I will talk about it quite a bit in this. And if you don't have one, you may want to consider getting one, and you'll see why in just a minute. So off rip, let's go ahead and take a look at our controller settings. Now we have pretty much everything here is going to be your most important settings, and I'm going to explain each and every single one of them. So the first thing is going to be your button layout. Now you may say, hey, you know what? I like doing tactical. I like doing bumper jumper. I like doing bumper jumper tactical. Personally, I don't think any of these are a good idea. And let me explain why. Off rip, there's a reason that I use a controller with back paddles. These things right here, what they're used for is to keep your right thumb on the analog stick at all times. And the reason why is because if you are jumping or sliding and you have to press one of these buttons, that is time away from aiming at your enemy. So to give you an example of this, I'm going to do that on this controller. Jump, turn, jump, turn. So when I do that, I'm so much slower to get on target. Jump, turn, ADS, jump, turn, ADS, slide, turn. Slide, turn, ADS. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are not things you want to do. But if I have back paddles on my controller, and I'll show you my hand cam here, you can see that my right thumb does not need to come off at any point in time. And before I ever hit that wall, I am on the enemy every single time. I can even hit the other target. I am constantly keeping my right thumb on the stick. So if you are using a different one, sure, you can do the exact same thing. Let's talk about tactical real quick. Why do people use tactical? Well, some people prefer to, instead of pressing circle to slide, they can actually keep their right thumb on the stick and actually just slide and be able to aim pretty quickly. And that's fine, but there is one issue with that. If you go to do that, you will notice you are a little bit less accurate. You can get used to it. However, there is always going to be a time where that pressure is going to force you to, one, sometimes squeeze when you don't want to, but two, miss because you're pushing too hard on your analog stick and you will miss your shots. Now, I'm not saying everyone's like that, but I know that a vast majority of people are going to squeeze a little bit too hard. That's what we do as gamers. It's absolutely natural. Now, again, you have something like bumper jumper. So if you want to, instead of jumping with the X button, which now basically does nothing unless you have a stun grenade or something like that, you then jump with L1, which you can see right here. I'm jumping with L1. But if I do that, then I can't ADS unless I use both of my fingers. Then it's like this. And that just, to me, is completely unnatural. And honestly, I still cannot be accurate with that. It's another thing that you have to get used to. So personally, the settings I recommend will always be default, and then just have a controller like the Expel Pro controller that has these back paddles on them. That way you can map. For me, I have this right here, the bottom right set to X so that I'm jumping. Bottom left is going to be slide. And then the top left and top right, I have those set to ping, which is allowing me to ping enemies while I'm aiming or while I'm moving. That's the big thing, is that if I'm moving around and I have to press the ping button at the top of the controller, then I have to stop moving. But let's say I'm in my map and I see something pop up, I don't have to stop moving. I keep moving, getting across whatever open area I'm in, and then I still get to ping that. So that's why I set my controller up the way that I do. Now, the next thing is going to be sensitivity, and these are very important. Your sensitivity is arguably one of the most important things that you can set up. And for the sake of explaining it, I'm going to turn off my aim assist. So right here, moving left to right, you can see I get no aim assist, right? Even moving and activating rotational aim assist, there's nothing there because I've got it turned off. Now, most of the time, you are going to be aiming left to right. So you can see my horizontal stick sensitivity is 1.6. It's very rare that you are going to have to go left, right, left, right, left, right, up, you're just never going to do that. If anything, you will look up beforehand and then ADS. You are not going to track up while you are ADSing. It is super rare. So moving from this target to this target to this target to the next target is very easy with a 1.6 sensitivity, which is going to be higher than that vertical. So the next thing is you're not, with a vertical sensitivity that's lower, you're not often going to go and move up very quickly, right? So instead of me shooting and accidentally flicking up or flicking down, it'll be a little bit harder to go up or down. So I'm staying right in that center chest area where I want to be at all times, and it's much, much easier. So that's why I keep that vertical sensitivity a little bit lower. Now, why do I have my stick sensitivity lower in general? I'm using a 1.6. A lot of people use like a 3 or something like that, which is outrageous. There is a big fat reason for that, and that is me figuring out the best sensitivity for me. And you can do this exact same thing. What I recommend is going in and switching between targets. Now you can do this here, or you can do it in like a private match in multiplayer, but switch between targets. And if you're pretty much always on the target, cool, you've got a great stick sensitivity. If you are not, you need to know why you are on or off. So for this, let's say I want to go from the 10 meter target to the 25. If I'm going to flick over, am I overshooting it? Am I overshooting it? Yes. Turn down your sensitivity. It's that simple. Turn it down a little bit. You can even do this with your custom sensitivities for your ADS speeds, which I will show you that as well in just a minute. So overshooting, you want to turn it down. If you're undershooting or you're going a little bit too slow, turn it up a little bit. And you're going to do that until you're right on target. Something that you feel you've memorized in a great way. Super easy to do over and over and over. It works out just fine. Once you get there, you're going to go back in, go to settings, and turn that aim assist back on. And now you'll notice that I'm going back and forth so freaking easy and absolutely dominating enemies with very good aim. And you might be saying, hey, you know what? My screen shake doesn't look like that. Don't worry. We're going to get to that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off my hand cam. Let's go back into here. Let's go back into the controller settings. Keep these 4 off. You just don't need it. Controller vibration. You might be asking yourself, Expel, why do you always have controller vibration turned off? Because the same thing with having those buttons set up on that right analog stick. If I hop in and I have controller vibration on, my aim is going to be shaky, right? I'm going to be trying to control it, and it's going to be shaking like this at all times. So I'm shooting and I'm like trying to keep it on target, but it's like, it's just a little shaky, which means I could miss my shots. Cut it off. You just don't need it. You don't need your hands to shake in the middle of it. If anything, get it out of your butt. All right. I'm going to keep it a buck. It's weird that you keep doing that. It's the whole reason you're using LMGs. Trigger effect, same thing. It's haptics. This one, I'm not going to go super deep in depth, but I am going to explain it just a little bit. So trigger effects right here. This is your trigger. If you go to shoot an actual gun, you will have a little bit of give right here, and then you're supposed to squeeze. So what PlayStation has done is they've given you a haptic feedback to where when you squeeze to that point, it'll get a little harder to squeeze. So I'm going to pull this down, and then right there it gets harder, and then you can squeeze. That's going to slow you down. It's going to make you shoot much slower. Don't do it. You just don't need it. Next up, we have Deadzone inputs. Let's go ahead and take a look at these. These are pretty important, actually. So the first one, you actually, if you hop in, they're going to look like this. This right here is possibly the most important setting you can change because Call of Duty has screwed you over. If you feel like no matter what you do, you are missing your shots, it's probably because they have you set up like this. By default, for some reason, they set it to where your left stick minimum and your right stick minimum are at 15. That means for 15% of your right analog stick, 15% of the center of this is just not real. You are literally going to be wiggling this around, and you can do it like that much. You just won't do anything. Nothing at all. So instead, what you're going to want to do is go ahead and change these to 0. The right stick minimum and the left stick minimum all the way to 0. Now, also set the left trigger and the right trigger to minimum, which is 0. And the reason why is because otherwise your trigger will not activate. So you're going to pull it down like halfway and it's not going to do anything. Don't do that. Just cut it both to 0. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and check our dead zone. So you see right here on the left stick, where if I move it out just a little bit, you can see it says vertical axis -2, horizontal axis 2, and my hands are off the controller. That means that I have about a 2% stick drift. I can even move it a little bit further to see how far it'll stick. And it looks like sometimes I can get it to stick right around 3. So what we're gonna do with the left stick, and I choose to do this because if I'm laying prone, I do not randomly want to move. If I start randomly moving while I'm prone, I will get seen and I will die. So do not do that. So set this to about a 3. Then we're gonna test it again. Is it getting stuck anywhere? Is it getting stuck anywhere? Nope, that one's good. Don't change your right stick. Don't do it, all right? A lot of people will tell you to change the right stick so you get rid of that that stick drift on that right analog stick, right? If I have this and I want to do little micro adjustments to be on target, I will miss. Recently, I actually had this set up at a 3 by default. I don't know what happened, but it reset it to a 3. And I was like, man, I can't hit my shots. I feel like I suck. You know, I'm not making these micro movements. Like the guy would be moving this way and I try and track and I just flick right over him to catch up. It was annoying me to death. So this setting alone should always be set to 0. That allows you to do those micro movements. And you might be saying, Expel, if I have it set to 0, I have stick drift. All right. If I let go and we zoom in, I wonder if it's even moving a little bit. Yeah, it moves without my hand on the controller. You can see it slowly moving to the right. I have stick drift too. Like, it happens. Now you can, whenever you're building out a custom controller over on expel.gg, you can get TMRs, which eliminates stick drift. Cool. I don't care though. I don't need it. It's absolutely unnecessary. And the reason why is because if you have a controller with back paddles over at expel.gg, again, get 30% off. That's the discount. Anything above $269 this month. If you have back paddles, you will never take your right thumb off your analog stick when you're in a gunfight, meaning you're always on target. I'm jumping, I'm sliding, all with my aim exactly where I need it. So you will not ever need to take it off. Deal with the stick drift. Stop worrying about it. Unless it is flicking way off to the side, this is not a problem in any capacity. 3 to 4% stick drift, absolutely fine. Don't stress it. Don't freak out. It is 100% okay. It is actually going to activate your aim assist a little bit better, to be quite honest. But that's neither here nor there. So going back into the settings, those are by far the best dead zone settings in my personal opinion. We're going to be using whatever your left stick needs, set that to whatever it needs. And then your right stick, set it to 0. As for your max on your left stick, you want to be moving as fast as possible, as soon as possible. So what I do is I will actually set this to about 70%, meaning when I take my controller right here and I move that left stick about 70%, I'm going to be sprinting at max. Now this is going to pair with a couple of other settings, but it's going to get you going as soon as physically possible, as fast as physically possible. Next up, we have our aiming settings. So going into the sensitivity multiplier, you'll notice everything is still at the exact same thing that it was before. I don't touch these. I don't think you need to, in my personal opinion. I think it's absolutely unnecessary. If anything, change tactical stance sensitivity multiplier to like a 0.8. That'll make it feel a lot bit better whenever you're doing a tac stance. However, we do have, oh my God, we do have some other things. I will recommend, of course, keep your aim assist settings on. If you see these are off, you need to fix them as soon as physically possible. Make sure they're set to on. As for your aiming advanced settings, I'm gonna say it, you need your ADS sensitivity transition timing set to instant. That way, when you go to ADS, it is going to instantly switch to that different sensitivity, which we'll talk about in a second. And aim response curve type is basically up to you. However, I think for 90% of players, you're gonna wanna do dynamic. If you are a complete beginner, set it to standard. If you have literally no idea how to do your aim, which I just taught you, so you shouldn't have an excuse. If you have no idea how to do it, set it to standard. If you know your sensitivity and you're comfortable with it, set it to dynamic. If you are God himself, set it to linear. Basically, the curve of these, what these curve types are, standard has, you know, this this slow curve. So it's kind of like, I don't even know how to visualize it, but imagine you got a little S curve, right? It's like this. The standard one is going to go way out for a second, and then it's going to speed up to the speed that you want, and then it's going to slow down again. Dynamic is a little bit less than that. Linear is basically a straight line. You always get the right sensitivity. So what I like to do is have that little bit of a slow start, little bit of a slow end, but not a very slow start and a very slow end. So it just comes down to whether or not you're comfortable with your sensitivity. Now, looking over at the custom sensitivity per zoom, I'm going to explain this one in detail because it can get a little bit confusing. A lot of people are going to tell you that you need to go ahead and change your overall custom sensitivity. And that is under your sensitivity multiplier. And you'll see it right here, ADS sensitivity multiplier. A lot of people are going to say, set that to 0.8. That is not good because if you are using a sniper rifle, it is going to mess you up. So what you need to do is instead go ahead and set your low zoom a little bit lower. That is going to make it where if you're at like a 3 or below, then you're going to aim just a little bit slower. So if I set that to a 0.5 and then a 2 to 3 to or a 0.85 and then a 2 to 3 to a 0.85 and a 4 to 5 to a 0.85, that means all my lower zooms I'm going to aim a little bit slower. Now, when we get into sniper range, you actually want to aim a little bit faster. So if I pull out my sniper and I'm trying to transfer from person to person, if they are moving quickly, then I won't be able to make that transfer. So what I like to do is change that sensitivity to be a little bit higher than the default sensitivity. That way, whenever I go to track them, I can actually properly track them. So that's going to help you stay on target a little bit easier, but it is going to make those micro adjustments a little bit harder. So it's kind of a give and a take. If you set it up this way to where it's a 1.05, 1.15, 1.15, then you'll probably have to do a little bit of adjustment, but it will feel a little bit better the more that you use it. Moving into movement, there are a few settings here that make a massive difference. Off rip, we're going to be taking a look at sprint assist. This is huge. Tactical sprint assist is what it should be set to. If you have it set to off, you are not utilizing omni movement in the slightest. You give it up. Just stop. That is crazy of me to, you know, see you out here having to struggle. No, if it's set to off, you're just failing, basically. Like, it is going to be very difficult for you to enjoy the game because of the way that omni movement works. So what you want to do is set that to tactical sprint assist, set the sprint assist delay to 0, turn on sprint assist sideways, and turn on sprint assist backwards. Meaning, now when you go to move, the second you move, you're able to use your omni movement. So now I move and I can slide. I move and I can jump. I move and oh, sorry, I'm pressing the wrong button. I move and I can dive, right? Like, everything is now available to me pretty much instantly after moving. And the reason it is because you have to be able to tactical sprint to do a lot of the omni movement things. Now, another thing about omni movement is you can actually slide to the left, slide to the right. Those are the wrong ways, but you get what I'm saying. You can dive to the left. You can dive to, well, you can dive to the right. You know, those are things that you can do with omni movement. But if you don't set this up the exact way that you see it, tactical sprint assist, 0 on, then you will not be able to do that. Mantle assist, I have set to off. Crouch assist off. Corner slice, turn that to off. If I turn that on, I wonder if it'll actually do it. I don't think it will. But basically what happens is when you're ADSing, it'll cock this sideways. I wish that you could actually, oh yeah, you can kind of see my gun cocking sideways a little bit, but it'll basically do that, but it'll do it for the center of my screen, which just makes it a little bit harder to aim properly at your enemy. So turn corner slice off. Now, slide and dive behavior, these are a little confusing. Here's what I'm going to say off rip. Tap to slide is going to be a little bit slower, meaning when you go to press the slide button, you will feel that there's a slight delay. The same thing goes with, actually, don't use tap to dive or don't use dive only. Those are just, they're off the table entirely. So let's forget about those entirely. Tap to slide, you're going to feel a little delay. Slide only gets rid of the ability to dive. So if you're trying to dive over something, it's physically not possible. So what I like to do is I'll use hybrid. And this is going to change the game for you if you can memorize how to do it. The way that hybrid works is that you will press the run button and press the slide button to dive. So if I'm trying to dive over something this tall, obviously there's a little broken thing right here and you can't dive over it. If I'm trying to do that and get cover instantly instead of sliding around and getting around it, then I can do that. I dive like that, I'm over, I have cover. It is massively useful. I didn't realize how useful it was. It also allows you to jump off of certain things and pull your parachute instantly. It is huge. So that's why my recommendation is, of course, to use hybrid, because you get the 100% or you get 100% of your Omni movement abilities. Now, next up, turn off automatic airborne mantle. That's going to happen when you don't want it to. Sprint restore, you want to make sure you're always able to get that fast sprint as soon as you start running again. Basically, after you slide, it'll automatically start sprinting again instead of you having to press that L3 button. Slide maintain sprint basically runs into the same thing. Parachute automatic behavior, you want to pull your parachute as low as physically possible, so turn that off. Mantle cancels reload, turn that off. Movement is advanced settings. Let's go ahead and take a look at these, because it has one specific thing that I really want to take note of. We have sprint and tactical sprint behavior. Obviously set that to toggle. Auto move forward, turn that off. Auto door peek. Now, this one's actually a big one. If you go to ADS at a door, it'll give you the option to peek it by pressing square while you're ADSing. If you have this on, it'll automatically open the door for you. You are immediately giving away your position every time you ADS near a door, which is not a thing you want to do. That's not even the thing that matters. Grounded mantle is one that is also pretty big. Grounded mantle is basically going to make it where if you're trying to jump through a window, if you have this turned off, you will jump and slap into the window every time. I figured this out halfway through Urzikstan. It saved my life. So turn this on so that you can jump through the window. The issue is sometimes you are going to mantle over things and fall down off of the top of a building. It does happen and it sucks, but you can memorize how to fight that and it'll get a little bit easier for you. But you definitely need to turn this on so that you can evade gunfights a little bit faster, because it saved my life more than me falling off of a building has killed me by a long shot. Now, the next thing is a lot of creators, when you watch their videos, they'll get this wrong. They'll tell you use single tap sprint. You want to set it as single tap run. So when you are sprint, this is, I'm trying to get rid of all of my sprint. This is this right here is sprinting. If you don't know, this is tactical sprinting. This is sprinting, right? So this is a sprint. But if you are walking like this is considered running. So what this does, and really this setting shouldn't make a difference if you've done the other stuff that I've said, but if you decided not to for any reason, you want to make it to where when you press forward like this and you tap L3 on your controller, this right here, you only have to press it while you're doing this to move as fast as physically possible. So that's why I set it as single tap run. Plunging underwater, set that to free, and sprinting door bash, turn that to on. That way you're not just running into random doors. Vehicle advanced behaviors. I highly recommend you set vehicle control mode to driver control. Score streak vehicle control mode to driver control. Vehicle camera recenter, set that to off. That's going to make it to where you can basically aim at your enemy while you're in the car, and it's not going to recenter whenever you don't want it to. And the camera initial position, also set that to free look. So when you hop in a car looking this way, you're going to be in the car looking that same way instead of straight ahead of the vehicle. That way, if you're trying to stay looking at an enemy and do a seat swap, you'll be able to continue doing that. Now, we actually have a ton of stuff to cover in combat, and this may also save your ass. So under combat, we have the aim down sight behavior, set that to hold. Tactical stance behavior, set it to toggle. ADS and plus down button is what I like to use. ADS plus melee for the weapon mount activation. Dedicated melee activation, set that to hold melee. I don't even know if I have a melee in here. I don't. But the reason I do that is because if you set it to weapon cycle and you swap and it switches to that knife, then you cannot possibly memorize your weapons in every single situation. So you may end up trying to switch to a weapon and it accidentally switch to a knife. So I highly recommend you set that to hold melee. Body shield behavior, set that to prioritize whatever you want. You have the option for all of these. I don't care. Armor plate behavior, that needs to be set to apply all. Otherwise, you're going to throw a plate in, pause. Then you have to press the button again. Throw a plate in, pause. It's incredibly annoying. C4 activation. If you throw a C4, you want to be immediately able to blow that puppy up. So set it to 1 by 1 instead of having to throw both. Equipment behavior, set it to hold. Manual fire behavior, set it to press, because if you set it to hold, it shoots a little bit slower. Combat it, well, I guess we'll finish this. Scoreboard map behavior, set that to toggle. Overlay advanced settings. I have this set to directional buttons, moderate, and default. And then under combat advanced settings, I believe weapon mount activation, you definitely want a little delay. If you set it to instant, you will sometimes just like move out of it without you having to do anything. It's very weird. I don't recommend it. Interact reload behavior. If you're playing multiplayer, you're going to reload a lot more. Set it to prioritize reload. If you're playing Warzone, you are going to interact a billion times. You're going to pick things up off the ground, open a billion chests, prioritize your interact. Just keep in mind that you should always hold to reload. Do not tap to reload ever. Just memorize, hold to reload. I realize if you go into the settings, there is in fact a setting that is tap to interact, which is always hold to reload, but that is going to slow you down in a lot of situations because it actually adds a short delay on your reload. I don't know. It's incredibly dumb, basically. It's kind of the same as tap to slide, basically, is what you need to know. Sprint cancels reload, turn that to off. Akimbo behavior, obviously I have that set to independent. ADS stick swap, please for the love of God. Depleted ammo switch, set that to on. Now, let's move on to the graphics. Moving into graphics, we actually don't need to go buck wild here. So off rip, let's go ahead and take a look at a few things under the display section. So the display mode, you always pretty much, and by the way, I'm going to take note, if you are on PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X or whatever it may be, you still may need this. So don't just toss out this specific section because you may not have every single thing. Stick through, follow everything that you can because it will make a difference in the way your game plays and feels and looks, really. So display mode resolution, or display mode, set that to full screen exclusive. That's going to make sure you you actually don't get as many split screens. Like, I don't know if you understand what it is, but basically your whole screen is a series of pixels and they sometimes get out of sync. This minimizes that and honestly raises your FPS because it focuses purely on the application. Next up, make sure your monitor's correct. Of course, I have a 27-inch 4K 240 hertz OLED monitor from Asus, which is on my website, and I highly recommend y'all go check that out if you haven't already, because my website has a ton of different things. I wonder if I can pull this up here. My website is not showing up in OBS, but it has a ton of different things that can be incredibly useful to you. And it has my recommendation for headphones, which again, I'm going to talk about in a little bit. It has my recommendation for monitors. It has my recommendation for pretty much everything. So what I'm going to show you here is my website, which of course we are selling merch right now. I highly recommend you go grab yourself a shirt. We've got the Where We Drop Them. We got the See You in the Gulag. It's good to be back. Outside of that, you can also get, like I said, the Expel Pro controller over there, which has, you know, a sale. This sale is actually different right now. It's the 30% sale that I mentioned earlier. The Xbox controller, PlayStation 5 controller, and some snap panels if you already have your controller. But then go over to that gear section and don't go to Expel's gear. For the love of God, do not go to Expel's gear. You don't need it, okay? Please, my gear is outrageous. It is stupid. You do not need it. I have a recommended gear section for you. Of course, my controller, but then an open back headphones. And then it also has, like I was mentioning earlier, my recommended displays are right here, which make a huge difference. Also, if your display is constantly getting ugly and nasty, this stuff right here, it is a game changer. I use it on everything, and it is so huge. To be able to see my monitor and not have a bunch of spit marks, incredible. So I definitely recommend going over to my website, checking out all the recommended stuff over there. Either way, your display adapter should be your graphics card. Make sure it's set to your graphics card if you're on PC. Screen refresh rate, make sure that's the max refresh rate that you have available to you. Screen resolution, make sure it's the max resolution that you have available to you. Aspect ratio should be set to automatic. If you need to, set it to 16:9, but I keep mine at automatic. And then if you have a widescreen, you know, change it to whatever widescreen ratio you have. Display gamma is kind of up to you. If you're on a TV, you may actually change this to something else to see if it allows you to see things a little bit more clearly. I use sRGB, but you may lose color or you may gain color by switching to one or the other depending on the device you're on. Now, I have my gamma and brightness set to 50. The monitor that I use is incredible. It will dynamically raise the shadows for me. I usually had, back in Urzikstan, I had it set to the, what is it called? The FPS mode, which is cool. It's great. It works well, and that's exactly what it does. I don't use that anymore. I just use the default, I think it's called the racing mode, and it looks incredible. It's vibrant, it pops. This is not an ad by any means, but I do, you know, if you go over there and you get something, I do get a little bit of cash on the side. But I keep mine at 50%. If you have like an IPS monitor or a TV that is not an OLED, change this to 60%. I know it's gonna look a little less colorful, but you do need it because it's gonna allow you to see things. Now, moving in to these sustainability settings, I would recommend turning on NVIDIA Reflex Low Latency if you have it available to you. It kind of depends on what works better for you. I use On Plus Boost and I get the most frames, but what you can do is you can test these while you're in a game and see which gives you more frames, and that's the one you should probably use. Now, it is also about system latency, which is kind of the speed I don't know how to explain this, but your system latency is going to change it to how it feels when you're pressing the trigger to when it feels like it's actually hitting the enemy. So if you feel like that's a little slow, one or the other may be holding you back. So pay attention to that as well. Eco mode preset, for the love of God, have that set to custom. If you have it on efficiency or low consumption, you are ending your chance at winning and lowering your frames. VSync, you don't need it. VSync menus, you don't need it. Custom frame rate. Now, back in the day, I used to tell people to set this as a custom and then open it up, which, by the way, you can't open it up, but I would recommend unlimited anyway. What I would tell people is to set it as a custom so that they didn't use more frames than they needed. Like if you have a monitor that does 144 frames per second, hertz, then you wouldn't need more than 145. So I'd tell people to do that. But I learned that it actually changes the way the system latency works with what you see on your monitor, or the latency to your monitor. So if you set it to unlimited, it's actually going to be a micro millisecond difference. But if you feel like you need that, then absolutely change it. Menu resolution, set that to maximal. That way you're just lowering the resolution in the background. Pause game rendering, turn that to off. You don't need it. Reduce quality when inactive, turn that to off. Focus mode, do not set that to anything above 0. If you set that to anything above 0, it will darken the other monitors you have attached to your PC. So if you're wondering why all of a sudden my other monitor is dark or you can't use your other monitor, that's why, is because you have on focus mode. High dynamic range, I don't use it. If you want to use it, it's entirely up to you. It really depends on the monitor that you have. Moving on. Into the quality settings, the graphics preset should not be set to anything. You can set it to custom there at the bottom. Render resolution, make sure that's set to 100% no matter what. Dynamic resolution, you're gonna wanna make sure that that's set to off. Now, if you do have a system that isn't that great, of course you can turn it on, but I don't recommend it. The most important setting for quality is going to be fidelity CAS. God, I hate this so much. I'm gonna have to pull out my mouse real quick, but fidelity CAS, if you're on a PC, you may have to do this. Click show more, make sure it is set to fidelity CAS. Anything else is not good. I'm just gonna tell you straight up, don't do it. Fidelity CAS, set that to 100. NVIDIA DLS frame generation, that is a no-go. Do not turn on frame generation. Sure, it will look smoother, but you are shooting at things that literally are physically not there. Frame generation is making up frames. Don't do it. Same thing for AMD frame generation. VRAM target, I would go ahead and put that to about the max that you can get if you have a good PC. If you have a crap PC, maybe set it a little bit lower. It's entirely up to you. I know a lot of people have lower end systems. That's absolutely fine. This is not me trying to take away from, you know, the hard work that you put into getting it. It happens. You know, I started on the lower end at 8350 or FX 8350 AMD CPU way back in the day. It was terrible. It couldn't run a damn thing. It was arguably the worst. It almost killed AMD, how bad that CPU was. And it was my first CPU. That's okay. But if you have a worse system, I recommend lowering your VRAM target just a little bit so that you're not struggling with the things going on in the background. Because Windows actually uses a specific amount of your CPU and of your graphics card, believe it or not, to just run things. So if you can lower it just a hair to like 85, I have mine set to 90. Variable rate shading. Now this one, I would say most people should turn it on. I had someone tune my PC, and they, when they did my settings, turned this on. I turned it off because I think it's more important to see every nitty gritty detail. They turned it on because most people will not notice every little nitty gritty detail. So that's why I had it set to off. Texture resolution, I recommend setting this to normal. If you want more frames, like if you notice this is a hard impact on your computer and you're not getting as many frames as you like, low is fine. I am going to show you the difference here. So if we hop in, let me click apply. If we hop in, you can look at this right here. Sorry, let me put my mouse on my other computer so that I can see what I'm looking at here. If you look at this right here, I'm going to zoom in. You see that right there? Now watch this. Now that is what happens whenever you set it to very low. And watch this. This is just regular low, and this is on normal. And the differences between those are minimal, but if you're in a match and you need to see certain things, it might matter. I'm pretty sure like 99% of pro players have their texture preset on very low. And it's just because you get the most frames from doing it. But for me, I like to make very beautiful content, so I keep it on normal. Some people set it to high, but the difference between high and normal is so, like, it looks better, obviously. Like if you look at this, sorry, I'm gonna pause again, and you compare it to this, then you can clearly see there is in fact a difference. But for me, I just don't think that difference is so important that I need to have it on high at all times. I'd rather get the frames and win more games. So that's why I keep it on normal. Texture filter, anisotropic, I actually don't even know why that's on, so I'm going to turn that to low. Depth of field, keep that off. I'm going to give an explanation for why it should be off. So right here, when I ADS, I'm actually going to zoom in. You can see I'm ADS'd and everything around me is a very visible. But if I change this setting, you can see that my scope kind of blurs out and it just isn't that natural. In fact, all the way around my gun is pretty blurred out. So I personally don't like having that on because I don't want anything blurred out. I want to see everything in its full glory because otherwise I might miss something. Detail quality, sometimes I'll change this to high if I feel like I'm missing certain things, but I usually keep it on low. It just depends on like how my computer is running that day. I don't know what it is, but sometimes this setting can be a little finicky. If you feel like something looks a little bit weird, set it to high and then set it back to low. But I would keep it at low personally if I was you. Particle resolution really doesn't matter, and it really has like a mid effect on your GPU. So setting it to very low is good. If you feel like you're getting a lot of explosions and you're losing frames during those explosions, make sure to set that to very low. Bullet impacts, you definitely want those on because you want to know where bullets are hitting to know where they're coming from. Trust me, you'll figure it out eventually. If you've never had this on, turning it on will actually make a big difference in your gameplay over the course of a lifetime because every little bit of information matters. Persistent effects, if you go near a player, I'm pretty sure like they will have the, like if they have a skin that is like fuzzy and glows and shit, I don't like it, so I cut it off. Cut that off. Shader quality, that I don't know why it's on high. For some reason my settings sometimes reset. Next up, we have on-demand texture streaming. Set that to minimal, and then I am also, because I can't, oh, it does work. And then also set the allocated texture cache size to 32. Download limit, make sure that is set to on because you don't need to do more than a gigabyte. So set your daily download limit to a singular gigabyte. Local texture streaming quality. Now, technically, this does have an impact on your game, but it also makes your game look a lot better. So if you really want it to look beautiful, set it to normal. I don't recommend setting it to normal. I keep it on low. You see how good my videos look. Shadow quality. Honest to God, this has like the biggest impact on your game. Turn it to very low. For the love of God, turn it to low. This and your textures will have the biggest impact on your game. So texture resolution and shadow quality. If you set those both to very low and you keep basically everything else on high, like the difference in frames is way minimal. Screen space shadows, you don't need that. Occlusion and screen space lighting, turn that to off. Screen space reflections, turn that off. This stuff, I promise you, you will never notice ever. especially if you're playing a game like this. If you're playing the campaign, it's fine. Keep it on. But static reflection quality, same thing. Static reflections is not your player showing up. This is only if there's a vehicle with chrome on it and there's a regular thing that shows up, like the rest of the map, it'll reflect off of it. But if you walk in front of it, you're like a vampire. It doesn't actually reflect you. So if it did, I would say turn it to high so you can see better and you can see those reflections, but it just doesn't. Now, tessellation, I recommend setting this to near, because if you set it to off, sometimes around the edge of your screen when you're running, it can look super jagged and it's a little jarring. So normally people will say turn this off. I find setting it to near makes that go away a little bit. But if you are really, really struggling for frames, again, set this to off. Volumetric quality, that is the haze of the windows. I can't really show you. Hold on, can I? Yeah, if you look at the haze, on the window, I'm actually just gonna get rid of my camera. You can see the top, or the left side is a little more hazy. The right side is a little more sharp on that light coming in, and that's what that is, and you just don't need it. So set that to low. Deferred physics quality, set that to off. Weather grid volumes, set that to off. And then water quality. Now what wave wetness is basically if there was like sand, you would see the shimmer from when the water hit it. It also does it to your character. So for a short time after you get out of the water, you will see a little bit of shimmer on someone's like pants or something like that when they get out of the water. Why does this matter? You do not need it for a game that is a competitive title. So set it to water caustics, because what water caustics does is it allows that light to properly go through the water so you can see a little bit better if you end up in a water fight, which is very rare in Verdansk. Moving into view, we got some big ones in here as well. Now, view, this category right here is basically what gives streamers their aim, right? Because people get a little confused as to why your aim looks like your gun's got no recoil. You're a dumbass. You're stupid. If you say that to people, you are an absolute ignoramus. And I bet 99 out of 100 times it's because you don't have your settings set up properly, that you just have no idea how to pull down on a stick. Because look at this, look. And I'll show you right here. If I shoot at this, and I'll even cut on my hand cam, you can see right thumb off. This is what it looks like, right? So let's get a reload. Right thumb on. Oh, wow, look at that. Super easy. All I'm doing is pulling down. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that something? Wow, he just pulled down. Super easy. Now, what you may be questioning is, hey, you know, why doesn't mine look like that? And that's exactly what I'm going to fix right here. So by default, I wonder if I can reset tab. Okay, so it didn't even do anything. Great. So by default, I'm just going to show you what everything looks like. Because this is like utterly goofy. Actually, I can just cut that on. Cut that off now. Should be 80. And then affected, yes. Sometimes it's independent. Weapon field of view, good. Okay, so this is what it looks like by default, okay? This is insane. Look at what it looks like. Right? And you see all this shake on the screen? This is what you look like when you're trying to stay centered on something. And it looks like there's a ton of shake, right? But then if I go into settings and I change all of these back to the way I have it, right? So you're going to want your FOV, set that. If you're on controller, do about 110, especially if you're on like a TV. If you're on a monitor and you're pretty close, set it to 120 or 115. 115 to 120 is what I would say. ADS field of view, make sure that is set to affected. Instead of you basically ADSing and it zooming in, you see how it zooms in right there? You don't want that. You want it to look like affected, because when you do that, then the targets, yes, are a little smaller, but it's easier to control by a long shot. So set that to, yes, affected. Weapon field of view, set that to wide. Third person field of view doesn't really matter. Vehicle field of view, set that to wide. World motion blur, I'm gonna explain this right here. You see how I can't see anything when I'm turning? If I go in and I turn that off, all of a sudden I can see everything while I'm turning. So if you're ever wondering why the hell these streamers see every single thing, it's not because they're cheating. It's because they have their settings set up properly. So do not run motion blur. Now, a lot of people will also tell you that weapon motion blur, you see how the gun's like a little blurry whenever I move over here? You know what I'm saying? It's a little blurry. Some people will say, oh, you actually get frames from it being blurry because it doesn't have to render in as much. That's bullshit. I don't know who came up with that, but that's just not how that works. You do not gain frames, especially in a meaningful way, by having weapon motion blur. And the next thing is my camera still shakes a little bit more than what I'd like. So you go in and you change the first person camera movement to 50 and the third person camera movement to 50 so that your screen doesn't shake as much. Now, at the very bottom here, we have the inverted flashbang. And as you can see on the right-hand side, these are your options. You have the flashbang that goes bright, which is what a flashbang does. And then you have the flashbang that goes dark. If you know anything about how light works, you know that in the dark, it's harder to see. So if you set it to inverted, then when you get flashed, what's going to happen is you will not be able to see things as that flashbang comes in. But the reason we change our brightness to be brighter is so that we can see more. So of course you don't want it to get darker on your screen. You want it to get brighter, because if it's brighter as it's coming down, you can still see movement. But if it's dark, you can't see that movement. So for the love of God, do not use inverted flashbang. That is a big no-go. Now I'm gonna run through and set up all of these settings, and I'm gonna show you the difference real quick. Whenever I bring this down, I'm actually just gonna do it on this guy right here. So I'm gonna show you the difference real quick. So this is streamer settings. Oh, well, hold on. Let's try that one more time. This is your streamer settings. Let's do it zoomed in. And this is your default settings. It is a world of difference. And that is why I highly recommend you set up these settings, because if you want to look like you've got streamer aim, you have to use the streamer settings. That is what it is. Now moving into audio, you can see that I've actually had Rara change my audio a little bit. You can see that it's called the Rara audio. And if you ever watch one of those hacker hunters, what they're going to try and do is indoctrinate you into watching their videos by saying streamers are using audio that cuts out footsteps, their own footsteps, and gets rid of PA noises and stuff like. No. First of all, a lot of other people use a very, very like hardcore version of what I use. I do not do that in the slightest. I just make it to where my ears don't get blown while I'm playing, which ironically also helps with the other side of it, which is footsteps sound a little bit better. However, you can go in and change some of these in the game under the enhanced headphone mode, which I do not recommend, and then configure the settings here. So what you can do is you can go in and you can change these yourself to be set up where, yeah, this is like -50. I think that is -50, 50, 50, 50. I know this is incredibly annoying. I'm so sorry. It just doesn't move. And then -50. Can I just negative? Yeah, I could have just done that the whole time. But yeah, I think if I'm not wrong, this is the proper setup right here. You may change it to where you can hear a little bit better, but set it up the exact same on the left frequency as you do the right. For me, obviously, I'm going to set them all back to 0. I know this is incredibly annoying and I'm super sorry, but you can set it up like that and hear footsteps a little bit better, and it's going to feel a little bit more natural. Mine is just more tuned to my headset. That's really all it comes down to. A lot of people are going to tell you that someone's using this audio that allows you to hear footsteps better than anything you've ever heard in your life. Personally, I don't. I don't use something that's way out there. I use the most minimal change to where it just doesn't blow my eardrums, because when I tell you that I cannot recommend enough to get rid of Astros and Turtle Beaches and stuff like that and switch over to using a studio grade headphone like I recommend on my website, and open back headphones like I recommend on my website, I like, that is the most important thing when it comes to audio. It will blow your mind how big of a difference it makes to have a good pair of headphones with a wide sound floor to where that audio goes all the way around. A lot of people also feel like PC audio is better than PlayStation and Xbox audio. Actually, by default, PlayStation 5 and Xbox both get Dolby audio, which allows you to get that full surround sound. But a lot of PCs don't allow you to do that. So what I do is I've actually set mine up to allow for me to have that 7.1 surround sound, which sounds way better and is a lot more encompassing. And that's something that I didn't have by default. So it finally allows me to do that, similar to how PlayStation and Xbox get that Dolby. Going through my settings, let me kind of explain the way that I've got things set up. So off rip, master game volume, set that to 100. Okay. You always want master game volume set to 100. I'm so sorry. This is the most annoying thing on the planet. Master game volume and effects should always be set to 100. Gameplay music, you absolutely, under no circumstances, want this on. For the love of God, while you are playing the game in a very intense moment, you do not want music popping in your ears. It is bad enough that while doing a recon, I have to hear Imagine doing that, but you're in a 1v1 situation. You need to hear the dude's footsteps. That would suck. So that's why I set this to 0. Dialogue is going to allow you to know whenever a UAV gets called in near you, or like a PA is getting called in near you. It'll sometimes call out like PA incoming, or, you know, UAV inbound, or advanced UAV up, or something like that. So that's why I recommend keeping dialogue volume on, and I had that set to 40. Effects volume and master game volume. The reason I set these to 100 is because if you don't set them to 100, you lose audio fidelity. You can always change it in your headset, on your PC settings, whatever it may be, but you do not want to change it in the game because it loses fidelity, and that is a big no-go. So that's why I do 100 and 100, and then cinematic music volume, you know the deal, exact same thing. Speakers, obviously make sure it's whatever your right speakers are. Speaker output, if you have surround, set it to surround. If not, set it to stereo. Enhanced headphone mode, you need that on to do that frequency tuning that I said earlier. And I do, by the way, that was just off the top. I'm pretty sure that's right. But if you go to my last settings video on Expel Plus, you can actually find the exact settings that I used, that I recommend. That was just off the top of my dome, to be quite honest. So I keep that off. I don't recommend it. I sure as heck do not recommend it, or recommend using this $20 pack that you have to pay for, and it sounds worse than the default audio. Now, audio mix, in my last video, I recommended Sucker Punch. They changed something in Season 3 Reloaded to where the audio feels like it's like falling on top of each other whenever you're using Sucker Punch. It actually says in Sucker Punch, tightest dynamic range, which means that certain things are going to overlap. So if you're trying to hear footsteps, sometimes you won't hear it because of a PA. So what I do is I've actually changed it to where I have more dynamic range, and because I'm using the surround, the 7.1 surround, it allows me to like hear things very clearly as to which direction it's coming. So I started using home theater, because imagine a home theater where you've got a speaker over here, a speaker over here, a speaker back there, a speaker back there. It kind of emulates it in your headphones, and everything's got its own place. So like a PA sounds over here, like not like it sounds like it's on my right side. It sounds like this part of the range. You can clearly differentiate between a PA, a cluster, an explosion, your like footsteps, and everything sounds a little bit different. So that's why I use home theater, and I think that's going to make a massive difference. If you have mono audio on, what this does is it makes both sides of your headphones sound the exact same. If you have a teammate that has mono audio on, stop playing with them. If you have mono audio on, it's time to give it up. Turn that off, please. Please, for the love of God. For the love of God, please. Please. Man, I can't believe that exists. Mute game when minimized, I don't cut that on. Mute licensed music is for me. You can keep it on. Really doesn't matter. I have it on, or I have it. You can keep the licensed music on. I have my mute on because I obviously don't want that in my videos. Asymmetrical hearing compensation is actually pretty cool. So this right here, it sometimes can change the way that PAs sound to where it actually sounds a little bit further away, even though it's going to be a little bit closer, but basically it's moving that just a little bit. So sometimes if you can't hear footsteps, even after changing to home theater, turning this on could help. Technically what it's there for is to help people with hearing problems, but it can also help with that dynamic range of your like audio frequencies to where you hear things in a little bit of a different way. So turn it on, give it a shot for a game. If you don't like it, cut it back off. But I keep mine off because again, I have my stuff changed outside of the game. Now I will note, I mentioned this earlier with the raw audio. I just had him go in, change a few frequencies. A lot of people go super in depth and you'll go into their like live streams and you'll hear that everything sounds like it's super high pitch. I clearly don't do that. My game sounds pretty similar, but you can hear footsteps a little bit more and your ears don't get blown out whenever you hear an explosion. That is how mine sounds, realistically. What I would like to say is that I do not use anything that touches the game files. Never. I have never, I will never touch the game files because if there was a way to go in and just cut off PAs, everybody would do it. I don't want to hear a PA blowing things up. I'm trying to hear some footsteps, right? I don't do anything that messes with game files. It is physically impossible, as far as I know, to even cut out certain like helicopters or vehicles or whatever it is to only hear footsteps. It is not physically possible. As far as I know, there is no way to do that. With that said, nothing I do will ever touch anything like that. On top of that, for the love of God, if you don't know, every single pair of headphones is set up in a way where they all have different frequencies. In fact, Astro A40s have a mix amp that allows you to change things the exact same way as what these audio tunes that everybody's upset about do. So if you have an issue with that, then at the same time, you have to be pissed that there's controllers with back paddles. You have to be mad that anybody can get a different monitor instead of playing on a TV. You have to be angry that people have better internet than you, because it just doesn't make sense, because there's so many different variables whenever you're playing, and changing the frequencies of of headphones, it just doesn't make any sense. So please, if anybody ever says that, first of all, there's no audio hacks. That does not exist. It never has existed. Changing frequencies has always been a thing in audio. And if you don't do it, you're actually putting yourself at a massive disadvantage. And you can do it with hardware or you can do it with software. Software obviously is free. Hardware is not free. It is what it is. Grab yourself a mix amp, pair it with a good pair of headphones, and change it that way if you want to. But my point is, it is in no way cheating. And anybody trying to tell you that is trying to indoctrinate you and get mad over literally something that doesn't exist. It is insane to me. Regardless, functionality, I also turn on reduced tinnitus. Like I said, I really don't like the high pitched noises. And because I use studio grade headphones, they are the proper sounds that are coming from the game. Man, oh man, I cannot recommend turning on reduced tinnitus sound enough. Also for the hit marker preset, if you really want to go old school, you can do classic, or you can do default, because they did the old school, like HDR, or not HDR, but like the old school plate sounds and stuff like that in the game. But I like to do classic. That's just my personal thing. Moving into voice chat settings, voice chat volume, I set that to 100. Voice chat, obviously I set that to on because I want to hear it. I want to hear my teammates whenever I'm playing random duos. If your teammates are too loud, obviously turn this down, clearly. Proximity chat, I have that set to off. I will sometimes go in and change it. That's why, as you can see, it's actually in my quick settings. So that's why I have it set up the way that I do, just so I can change it very quickly. Body shield chat, I think it's funny. I turn it on. Last words chat, have it on because I think it's funny. Game chat voice, all lobby. If you set this to party only or friends in chat channels, all of them mess up in some very different way. I do not have an explanation for why they do this, but they do. And it is incredibly frustrating. So voice chat output device, if you have a separate device that does your voice chat, clearly set that to whatever that is. I have a different cable that goes in the back of my gaming PC to go to my streaming PC that actually separates that so that I can throw it into the video and dynamically change the audio of my random teammates so that in my videos, it's easy to hear them over the game. That's why I have it set up the way that I set it up. But if you have a separate thing, completely up to you. Microphone volume, be a good teammate, okay? You can go in and you can test your microphone. So if I cut on my mic, you can hear how loud it is. Your microphone by default is right here. So now I talk and it's incredibly loud. The issue is you can hear it double back and literally echo back on itself, which is insane. Do not do 100% volume. You are a psycho. Stop that. All right. Set your microphone level to about 25. All right. 25 is about your number. I set mine to 34 because I have a very good mic that is obviously studio grade. I have a Shure SM7B. I have it set up perfectly. So it's going to sound a lot better than everybody else's. I do not recommend setting up the microphone to a super high level. It makes literally no sense to me. Microphone mode, set that to push to talk or open mic, whatever you need. Mute yourself when connected to a channel. Turn that off. You're never going to be able to talk to other people. Actually, that makes so much sense why people are randomly muted when you hop into a game. And microphone input device, make sure that's set to the right thing. Now, the last things that we're going to be going over is your interface, as well as your account and network. The interface. Now, I did mess this up on the last one. I said the wrong thing in my last settings video, so I'm going to run over it real quick. So the menu prompts, set it as automatic. If you set it to controller, your prompts for the menu alone, not the game, your menu will show up as controller prompts. Your keyboard and mouse will do the exact same thing. Gameplay tips. You don't need them. Cut them off unless you're a brand new player. Introduction movie. You do want to skip this, meaning you want to set this to on. I misspoke the last time I did this because I was sick. I meant to say set it to on. Set it to on. The reason why is if you disconnect from a game, you want to skip that introduction movie so that you can get back into the next match as soon as physically possible, because Lord knows it takes a minute to boot up this match or this game. So set that to on. Skip kill cam. Make sure that is set to off. You always want to watch your kill cams. Tool tips. I keep them on. I don't think it makes a difference. I think it actually allows me to see certain things that I need to know. Telemetry, completely up to you. If you need to see certain things, set it to on. If you don't feel like you need to see certain things, set it to off. I keep it off because I make videos that are in 4K and I want it to look pretty. Telemetry data label size, completely up to you. Probably setting it to larger would be best if you don't have a massive screen or if you can't see it. I mean, again, up to you. Network in-game icons, set it to on. Readability. Now, I actually have my menu set to larger because I like being able to read everything super easy. And I also like being able to have you all be able to read everything without having to zoom in every single time you want to see it. So I set it to larger. Visual support preset, please do not turn that on. Subtitles, completely up to you. I have it set to default. Subtitle size, set it to default. Menu text size, like I said. Text, chat, text size, set that to default so that it's not blowing up your screen. Now, going into color customization, this is a little interesting because this is going to allow your game to pop. It is going to look so freaking good whenever you set it up exactly how I'm going to tell you. So if you notice my videos look really colorful, set it up, color filter right here to filter to, and color filter target, set it to both. World color intensity 100, interface color intensity 100. You don't need to change anything else here, okay? Nothing else needs to be changed. Actually, if you change it, sometimes it messes it up altogether, so I just don't recommend it. But those two are going to make everything look a billion times better whenever you hop into Verdansk. So set that up, get that saturation, be able to differentiate, you know, enemies from their background, stuff like that. Moving into gameplay HUD, minimap shape. If you have it on round, you are losing out on 40% of your minimap. Make sure that is set to square. Minimap rotation, I highly recommend you set that to on. That way it like kind of turns with you. Radar, if you notice when you hop into a match that your radar is just a big white box with your arrow and your teammates' arrows, it's because you have this radar set to on. The reason that it's broken is this is actually something that used to be a little box around the outside of your map, and whenever they introduced Black Ops 6, they broke it. No idea why. No idea how. It's incredibly confusing how they do this every single year. Compass type. I like to have my compass at the top of my screen, so I set it to horizontal. You can also set it to off, but horizontal allows you to call out where people are and give a direction much quicker. Map assist. I set this actually to auto center so that whenever I hop into the map, it's already on me. Tac sprint stamina bar. Just for the sake of when I'm running around the map, I like to have it at the bottom left of the screen. So when I'm running, and eventually I'm going to run out of tac sprint, you'll see in just a second. When it's going to do that, I can see it at the bottom left of the screen. Sadly, it doesn't show up in this, but it does help to have that set to display near health. I don't like it on the crosshair because I'll sometimes miss what I'm trying to see. So I like to set it as near the health. Vehicle HUD prompts, completely up to you. in-game text chat, I keep that off because I don't like watching people spam slurs. Player names, I have this set to abbreviated, and the reason why is because you have it set to full name, you will have to see their clan tag, but abbreviated gets rid of that clan tag because literally no one cares. And then setting it to icon only, you'll never know who to call out whenever they're near something, so I like to call out, or I like to set it to abbreviated. Buy station closes when damaged. Turn that to off. This was a setting that did not exist back in Warzone 1, so if you got shot a single time, you could not buy your teammate back. Most incredible thing that they've added the whole time, but big, oh my God, it's such a big deal. Such a big deal. Weapon inspect, attachment info, just so that you can figure out what your enemy's attachments are. If you pick it up and you like their weapon, keep that on. Custom ping duration, I have that off. You really don't need it. Kill feed duration, default. Again, crosshair. Now, this one's, this one's a little bit interesting. If you go into crosshair, one, keep your crosshair dot on. Center dot scale. A lot of people are going to tell you to set that to largest. Whenever you set that to largest, it will cover certain enemies' heads at a distance. Meaning, if you're trying to center on someone, you will literally miss their body. So look right here. I'm trying to see that guy's head. I am covering his head. And then when I ADS, I still can barely see it. That is not what you want. So I like to go in and I keep this set to default. You don't need it larger. Crosshair spread. Let me show you this real quick. So check out the center of the screen right here. You see how when I jump, or actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to set this to static just for the meantime and in between time so I can explain two things at the same time. Where is it? Crosshair opacity dot. Sorry, static. There it is. So look at this crosshair right here. You see how it stays in the exact same spot and the like little lines on the outside don't get bigger? Now, if I go in and I change it to where this is no longer set to static, because static, by the way, is always center of your screen, not where you're actually aiming. And if I set crosshair spread to on, it lets you know when you jump, one, that your hip fire is going to spray out farther. So when you're jumping and you see that crosshair spreading, and I'll show you right here, it's spreading, that is your spread for your bullets. So when you shoot, you can see it kind of can go all the way within that. So instead of doing that, you can see it stays in the center and it slowly goes out as you shoot. So if I do this, it'll be a much tighter spread if I just keep it to where it's not actually blowing out just a little bit. So that's why I like to, whenever I'm jumping, I want to know where my bullets are going to hit. So if I jump and I let it hit, I know my bullet, you literally saw that it hit right down there. But if I'm jumping and I can't see that it's going to hit down there, then I'll hip fire and I'm shooting at the completely wrong spot because I'm going to think it's center, but it's actually down here that it's shooting, or up here, or whatever it may be. So that's why I like to keep my crosshair set to on instead of set to static, because some people will do static. And then I want to do the crosshair spread set to on so that I know where my bullets are going to go. Now, a lot of people are going to tell you to change your crosshair color. Sometimes this color right here, sometimes this color actually changes a little bit. And because of that, I like to keep my crosshair color set to white. Now, if you struggle, at the very least, the best thing you can do is actually set this to a blue color. And then when you hop in, oh, this isn't even, did it even change? What the hell? Oh, it didn't change. Sorry. If you set it to blue, and then you turn it all the way to the right. Sorry, I don't know why it's like this. Lord have mercy. Set it to blue, turn it all the way to the right, apply custom color, and it still did not work. For the love of God, this is insane that it is like this. My goodness. I don't recommend it anyway. At the end of the day, keep it as white. This is the only one that I think would basically, would allow you to see properly whenever you need to. Obviously, if you're looking at the sky, it's not going to work anyway, but you don't want to set it to red because sometimes red means that you killed your enemy. So I don't like setting it to that, and I know a lot of people set it to red. If anything, do like a color that's way out there, like pink. Something that is just not a color that you see ever. Because then it'll differentiate from the background, but it's not going to be a color that defaults in your crosshair color anyway. Hit marker visuals, of course, you want it on. Damage-based hit markers, exactly what I was talking about. You can see that under my camera, it actually changes to a red color. That is exactly what I'm talking about. You do not want to have it not be able to change to red. Otherwise, you're defeating the purpose. That's why I say keep it as white. And then your widget visibility, you used to be able to change a ton more here, but you can only change your illumination feed and your mini map opacity. And finally, moving into the account network, what is the only thing in here? Dismemberment and gore effects. Turn that off if you don't want to see some weird stuff and like bodies blowing up and stuff like that. It's actually super, super distracting. And of course, if you don't want to see people saying disgusting things in the text chat, make sure to have profanity filter on. Now, under quick settings, you'll notice everything I have here is actually set up as audio stuff. These quick settings do make a big difference whenever you're trying to go in and change something. Like if you're trying to hear something in the game and you can't, I would recommend going in and setting up some quick settings to where you can memorize it. Like one, I want to make sure that my microphone mode's set up right. I have that set to my open mic, we're good. Test microphone so that I know if I'm talking. Oh, I'm not talking? Now I'm talking, right? So then I have proximity chat. If I don't want to hear proximity chat, I can turn that off very quickly by having it in my quick settings. So that's why I set it up like this. That is the only thing that I really think needs a change. But aside from that, that's pretty much every single setting that we can go over. So hopefully you found that helpful. Again, I highly recommend you go check out the Expel controllers. They are incredible. They will change your game. I promise you, you will improve. If you have never used a pro controller, go grab one of these, spend a little bit of cash, grab one of these and become a better player. Also, feel free to check out the merch. Either way, I hope you all have an incredible remainder of your day and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.